You're listening to The Power Project, and I'm your host, Brandy Vogt. It's my goal each week to inspire and empower you with stories of women that are leading purpose-filled lives and owning their God-given power. We're kicking off 2019 with more inspiration, more motivation, and more empowerment from amazing women across the world. Since January is National Human Trafficking Awareness Month, I wanted to feature someone that is contributing to the cause. My guest today, Kelly Welk, is the founder of Cider Lane. She's also the founder of Freedom Dinners. She speaks to how you can use your own unique gifts to follow whatever purpose God is calling you to do in your life. She tells us how she took her love of cooking and entertaining to help fight human trafficking. You're going to love her story, so let's jump right in. Hey guys, welcome back. I'm here today with a guest to help us kick off this Human Trafficking Awareness Month. For those of you that do not know, January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and you guys know that I'm passionate about the cause. I love highlighting and spotlighting women that are just really leading purpose-filled lives, owning their God-given power, and not letting anyone tell them that they can't do that. So today, my guest is a really unique guest. I think you guys are going to love hearing from her. She can speak to the business angle. She can speak to fulfilling your purpose, giving back. I'm excited to get to know her better, as I know that you guys are. So my guest today, Kelly Welk. Hey, Kelly, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. I'm so excited that you're here today, all the way from the Pacific Northwest.
Yep, it's cloudy and foggy here at my house. I live a ferry ride away from Seattle.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I bet it's kind of like dreamy though right now.
Oh yeah, I don't mind the fog. It's good for today.
Yeah, we had one of my very best friends was in Vancouver, Washington for the past few years, and she just moved back to Texas, and she's adjusting.
She's adjusting to the sunshine.
Yes. The sunshine, the extreme weather. You know, we don't really have moderate temps. We have really, really hot or really, really cold.
Oh yeah, we just have it's damp a lot, but I don't mind it at all. I grew up in Alaska for the most part, and so I feel like the worst day here near Seattle is like totally fine with me.
Yeah. Well, I really do enjoy Washington State. I just don't know that I could live there for long term. Like, I'm a sunshine kind of girl. But so you and I have been sitting here chatting, and we could have gone on all day long discussing all the things. But do me a favor. Why don't we start here? And you guys, why don't you tell my listeners about your business, what it is that you do, how you got started?
Sure. Well, my business is called Cider Lane, and we create beautiful community that gives freedom. And what that means is that we host community workshops and events. We have an online fair trade shop. And then we also have an online community called the Dream Catcher Community, which is all about gathering women together so that we can dream together and go after the big things that are on our heart. But my business started because I had this just this question sitting on my mind and my heart that was, I really just think it was from God, and it had me thinking on it for quite a while of just, why was I born here in this land of opportunity? Why do we have all of the stuff we have? Why am I here basically instead of in an impoverished village in Africa? And that question was just like rolling around in my mind and my heart. And I got to hear from some friends about a nonprofit that they were starting that was fighting human trafficking. And when I left the gathering after listening to them, I just had this really simple but kind of crazy idea. What if I do what I already do, but we use it as a way to help? And what that was to simply host a dinner. We love having people at our house. Like, ever since my husband and I got married about 18 years ago, we always have people over, like cooking dinner for people is like not a big deal in my mind because it's just what I did. And it's so what I did that I just never thought it was a big deal. So that very first simple, crazy idea was that I would just invite people over. But the crazy part was that I was going to ask them to pay to come and eat dinner at my house. So instead of all of us rounding up to go to a restaurant, I said, why don't you come to my house? I will cook a big feast for us, and I'll have you pay. And then we're going to take that money and we're going to donate it to Rescue Freedom International. And let's fight human trafficking by having dinner together. And that one dinner started me down this really kind of crazy road of figuring out all sorts of things. And then my business launched out of it. And so that's kind of the nutshell of how it all happened.
And I love that, because I think so many people have an idea or a call on their heart or a pull, and they really don't know how to go about launching it or putting it into action. And I am constantly telling people, whatever gift you have that's unique, like you have something that sets you apart from someone else that makes you, I call it your place of power. So in that, I've taught that, look, if you make like the best apple pie ever, like that's a source of power. That's a gift that has been given to you by God that you can do something with to bless the world. So I love that you looked at, introspectively, like, what do I already do? What do I already love? And how can I turn that into giving back?
Oh, yeah. Well, and the challenge is that we all are really great at stuff, but we don't think that it's a big deal because we're so used to it, and it comes so naturally to us that we skip over it, and we're like, well, isn't everybody good at hosting? Like, doesn't everybody love cooking a meal and like having people at their table? Like, that's so normal. How could that ever be helpful to anybody? And so sometimes we need our friends and people in our lives to say, hey, I see you do this and it's different when you do it. You're really great at it. Like, I struggle with that. And it's so powerful when we can tell people and help them see it for themselves, because it gives them kind of this like handhold in a way of something to dream over, because they're like, oh my goodness, I am good at this. And usually the things that we're really, really great at are also the things that bring us immense joy. And so when we can put those things together and say, okay, I'm really great at this, and it brings me immense joy. It literally fills my life with like meaning. And we say, okay, God, that's the thing that I want you to help me dream over. What can I do with it? And we just shouldn't be afraid to start really small with the stuff that feels like, oh man, this is just the everyday, like I would do this anyways type of ideas,
Exactly. Yeah. I think people get paralyzed by the thought that it has to be so great and so huge, the magnitude of it can become overwhelming. And so I think just the simple thought of start here, start now, start with the gifts you have, and then let it grow. And so your one idea of your one dinner with this community has now turned into, you've hosted multiples. You have other people across the US hosting multiples. So explain to me and everyone listening exactly what a freedom dinner is, how it works, how to make it work. Set the scene, and you can set the scene in your beautiful little orchard if that's where you start.
Sure. Yes. Well, I will say that the very first dinner we hosted did not look anything like, you can come and follow me on Instagram, Kelly Welk. I post lots of photos and give lots of behind the scenes details whenever we're hosting dinners. But that first dinner, and even the first dinners, did not look like what you see on Instagram now. So we all have to start at the beginning, basically. But what a freedom dinner is a chance for you to gather your community. Not just to invite people to the table, but to invite people to help you host the dinner. So when we host a freedom dinner, I choose the date that works for our family. Everybody is a volunteer that is involved, including myself and anything that we give from our business and my husband, and we use our home to host them. But everybody's a volunteer. So we choose the date. And then I start asking different people in the community to be involved. Even though, sometimes you look at it and you think, gosh, this would be way easier if I just did it myself. And you probably could do it yourself, but it would lose the power behind it. Because what's so amazing is when you can gather all of the pieces of the dinner, all of the people at the table, and you can look around and say, this was truly an effort from our community, people giving their best in order to help somebody else. And so I usually find somebody that can do the flowers. A lot of times the flowers are donated out of people's gardens, or I have a local flower farmer that I work with, and she does a lot of the flowers, and she loves donating the ones that she's growing. I'll ask a local person who does like calligraphy or hand lettering if they will do the place cards and the menus. I ask different people who have gardens here. If it's summertime, I love to ask people who have gardens growing, like if they have anything in their garden they'd like to donate. And then I basically plan the menu around what donations we have coming in. And then I put the invite out and I let our whole community know that, hey, we're doing a freedom dinner. People pay to be at the table. All of the money that they pay to be at the table goes to Rescue Freedom International. Nothing from the dinner is supporting anybody's business. It all is everybody's saying, I'm going to put my best into the middle and let's see what we can do together. And then I have a team of people that come and they help prep the food and set the tables up and get everything ready. And then the day of the dinner, there's another team of people that come and they actually help make sure that the food actually gets onto the table. And there's a lot of people washing dishes. I mean, we basically set up our own little mini restaurant in a way. We are not caterers. We are real people cooking in my real kitchen, making a home cooked meal. So when people arrive to the Freedom Dinners, we just greet them and they get to find their spot at the table. I take time to make sure that everyone's name is right where they're going to be sitting, because it's so powerful when you arrive somewhere and you see that a seat has been saved for you and that people have planned for you. And so they grab their goblet and they help themselves to something to drink and the appetizers that are ready. And then they take a seat at the table. After everyone's arrived, I just invite everybody to the table and I share a little bit about, the power of us working together as a community and what we're getting to do together and where the money is going and how we're able to help. And then we get to just simply enjoy a beautiful evening together around the table. And it's been really cool to see, the people that come to the dinners, they don't all know each other. And so I work pretty hard to make sure that people are sitting next to somebody that they would enjoy spending the evening with. And then it's been cool to see them connecting later on Facebook to actually do stuff together and reach out to one another. And so the dinners have been this really amazing thing that's been connecting our community. I think that they've been as powerful here as the money has been helping other communities and women and children be able to have a new life outside of human trafficking.
I think that's a really key ingredient to what it is that you're doing, because, the statistics and the studies show that right now Americans are more lonely than they've ever been. Mm-hmm. And there's all the theories behind it. You've got the social media and people feel isolated because they see other people out doing things together and they're left at home. So I think that this whole sense of it's almost just getting back to the root of, what we were intended to be put here on earth to do, which is be part of a community and build each other up and lift each other up. And how great is it to come together and work for the good, to give back. So I do think that is where some really deep connections can be formed and friendships. And so that is what has spawned I'm asking instead of telling, but is that what has spawned your whole vision with the Dreamcatcher community?
Yes. After we had hosted the dinners for about a year, a friend of a friend came to one of the dinners and she was engaged and getting married and had asked if I would help her designer wedding. And that wedding launched my business. And so for the first several years of the business, I actually did events and weddings and designed them and did all the decor and all of the planning and stuff for those. And it was through all of those events that I realized, gosh, my heart is so deeply connected to actually creating community. Like I love creating beautiful spaces. I think it is one of the things that I'm really great at, but I would create all these beautiful spaces for other people. And then I realized I'm missing the piece of this that is so connected to my heart, which is like, you can go set up a gorgeous wedding for somebody, but there's no connection to community in there. For me personally, obviously the people at the wedding are having community time, but, and so I started just shifting our business more to doing workshops and stuff for the sole purpose of creating community. And the more that I was doing that, the more I was just getting asked to speak on, how do you find your dream? How do you find your community? How do you find your place? How do I go after this? And the more that I was getting asked to speak at places, and the more I was getting asked to just really have these conversations with women, I realized I'm like, we need desperately to have a place that we can gather together and cheer each other on. Because it's just like I was saying that, we can miss the things that we're really great at in our lives. And we need other people surrounding us that can say, I see this in you, and I want to help encourage you to actually dive into that. And so last year at this time, I was sitting, planning out the year, and I just knew I needed to write a book. Because I would go to speak at these places and try to fit everything into 20 minutes. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I have so much more I want to share with you about what it looks like to go after your dreams. And it's really practical and it's tangible. And so in September, I released my book. It's called Dreamcatcher. You can get it on Amazon. You can also buy it on our website, ciderpresslane.com. And so when I was getting ready to launch the book and release it, I just thought, this can't just be a book by itself. Like, it's one thing to like read a book and you're like, oh, I feel really inspired by it. And then the book gets put on the bookshelf and those thoughts you had get put on the shelf with it. And you just kind of go back to the everyday life that you were living. And then we start having those feelings of, oh, I wish I would have acted on that thought. I wish I would have taken the steps to do something about it. And so because I know that so easily happens, we decided to launch this online community called the Dreamcatcher community. And it's for everyone that's saying, I want to take the next step. You don't have to have read the book to be part of it, but the book definitely helps get you ready to like dive in and say, I want to make something of these small ideas and dreams and big thoughts that are on my heart. And I don't want them to just go back on the shelf.
I think that's so brilliant because you're exactly right. We can, and I know I'm guilty of it. You read the book and you're inspired and you're like, oh, this is amazing. And this is great. And I've got a fire under me and I'm going to go chase these dreams now. And then life happens.
You got to do the laundry and you got to go run the errands and you got to go to work, and those things don't go away. And so the question really is, what are you going to do to take the intentional steps to move toward where you want to be? Because, we can all have like a crash diet for a week and be like, oh my goodness, I lost 5 pounds. But the reality is that we didn't actually change any of our habits or change the trajectory of where we were going. We just we're crazy for a week. But there's a difference that happens when we take an intentional step and say, I actually want to change the way that I'm living my life. And I know God is calling me to something more and bigger. And if I continue to do exactly what I'm doing, I'm not going to get there. And the thing that I found is that the hardest place to change is where you're really comfortable and where it's easy. And, it's not that the people around you don't want you to change or don't want to encourage you, but they might not realize how much you need to adjust in your life and how it needs to look different in order for you to actually take a step towards where you want to be. It's just like in January, people have all of these New Year's resolutions, but they are kind of siloed because you're like, yeah, I want to be healthy, but in order to be healthy, or like, let's say your goal was to lose weight, which, it's probably like one of the most popular resolutions. But if you're like, yeah, my goal is to lose weight, but my goal is not to change anything about my life. Well, guess what? You're never going to get to that goal. But if you're like, gosh, my goal is to lose weight, and I know I'm going to have to be really uncomfortable, and I'm going to have to actually make some different choices about how my schedule looks. Like, I'm probably gonna have to go to bed earlier so I can get up earlier so I can go to the gym. And that's all gonna feel very weird. And when you're doing that by yourself, it's so easy to just go right back into the life that was like the comfortable spot. And so the Dreamcatcher community is really a really strong tribe of women that are saying, please hold me accountable. I see this big goal or this idea and this dream, and I don't want to get stuck in my everyday life and not change and not move toward it. And we get to each month, you get a teaching video from me. You get downloadable journal pages that help you work through like the big topic that we're going over that month. And then there's some questions to kind of keep you on course through the month. And then we have a closed Facebook group. It's just for the women that are in the Dreamcatcher community. And it's a spot for us to like actually touch base, do some Facebook Lives, and really keep each other on track. Because goodness, it is so hard to change our schedules, because our schedules are, we get really comfortable in them, and our schedule is really what determines what we're going to do tomorrow. And what we do tomorrow, it's all these compound affecting decisions that help us get to where we want to be.
And I think that is another thing you're doing so right by sharing that message, because I firmly believe, listen, I lived in the comfortable space for 10 years and don't realize you're even there. I like you always knew that there was a greater call and a bigger call, something I should be doing. But at the end of the day, I saw the exact same people every day.
Yeah.
And I went to the exact same places every day, and I ate at the same place. And so very much like what you said, it's not that the people around you don't want you to do more. It's just that they may not have the same vision you have, and they may not even understand when you start to change things.
Yeah.
And you start to step out in faith. And I don't know, so maybe you can speak to that, because it sounds like you've probably had a similar experience as I have. But when you chose to step out in faith and do this and launch your business and launch the Freedom Dinners and all the things, was there maybe growing pains? That's what did you experience growing pains within your network, like your close network of people? Can you maybe speak a little to that?
Yeah. Well, and I do want to say, this is when we started hosting the dinners to now, it's been like 5.5 years of things adjusting and growing and changing. I think we were saying earlier that, you don't always start off with the big, huge dream, like what I'm doing now, I almost didn't even have a vision for it when we first started, because I was just so like excited that we were getting to do the dinners. And when I think back to that time, there were some specific people in my life that were very hurt that I was choosing to spend my time to create these dinners and not spending time at whatever it was that I had been doing with them previously. And I remember struggling with that, feeling very, very hurt personally, that, oh my goodness, don't these people see that I'm like dead on. I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I know I'm doing what God's called me to. I'm getting our community together, which is like huge and good. And we're getting to turn this dinner together into a way to help women and children in other communities as well. I'm like, these are all really great things, but still these people were so hurt that I wasn't choosing them and choosing what I had done before. And I had to just keep reminding myself that, I could continue to choose them and what I had always done, but look at all this stuff I would have missed out on. And then as I decided to launch the business, and the business was growing and it's morphed and changed and required more of my attention, there's been other things in my life that I have had to say no to. And it's not that they're bad things. They are great things. Like, I loved when I had more freedom to be able to just go hike with some of my girlfriends. I loved when I had the freedom, like, there's some of these things that, like, just because I didn't have as many responsibilities on the work side, I had more freedom to make some of these different choices. And so it's one of those things that sometimes we have to realize that the things that we're saying no to aren't bad things. And that actually makes it harder. It would be better if they were bad things, because your brain would be like, yeah, you shouldn't do that because it's bad. But when it's a good thing and we're having to make a different choice, that's when it really comes down to you being secure in what you feel like God has put on your heart, because you're going to need to stand firm on that and say, no, I know I'm supposed to put my time into this. And as you put your time into that, more opportunities and more amazing things will continue to come from that, that will take the place of whatever it was that you're having to say no to. And so I think there's this balance of, I mean, it's not balanced like it's going to be equally balanced, but there's this point where you have to look at, I can stay where I'm at and it can stay the same, or I can put myself in a place where it's a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm going to be able to move towards where I want to be. And we have to just embrace the fact that it is going to be uncomfortable. 100% it will be.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I couldn't agree more. I know that we personally went through it, and I had to know, like, I remember like long conversations with my husband where I just had to say, look, like, this is where God has put us. Mm-hmm. We would not be pursuing or doing, fulfilling our purpose and following his call had we not allowed him to move things and people out of our way. And not that any of it was bad. Mm-hmm. Like you said, we just needed, we needed our plate to be cleared up and tidied up so that we could answer the call that he had for us.
Oh yeah. There's a whole chapter in my book, Dreamcatcher, that talks about that and kind of helps walk you through how to figure out what that is for you. The way that I wrote Dreamcatcher is that it's actually a guided journal. So every chapter, it gives you, these nuggets of truth and stories so that you can kind of get the concept. And then it gives you really pretty simple, but very pointed questions to help you look at your own life and your own calendar and your own schedule so that you can kind of see what that is for you. And I'm sure that you have found this as well, that the more that you step towards what you feel like you're supposed to be doing and spending your time on, the clearer it is what you should and shouldn't say yes to.
Oh, yeah. So, it's like you're like razor focused where like, I'm supposed to be doing this and I'm not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah. And initially, the main thing that you're trying to do, like, let's say that you're like, okay, Human Trafficking Awareness Month, I want to do something this month to make a difference. Let's just tackle this one little month. And you're like, okay, I don't know what it is yet, and I don't know how I'm going to do it or how I even have the time. So, the first question you ask yourself is, okay, well, what do I enjoy doing? And start there. And then let's say you're like, oh, I like running. And you're like, okay, well, maybe I could gather some friends together and we could do a run, but everybody that is going to come I'm going to challenge them to raise $500, let's say, or $100. I mean, whatever it is. But you're going to meet together. You're going to do the thing that you love to do, and you're going to gather your community to do it with you. And then at the end of that time where you got to run and be with your people, you get to give some money away and help make an impact with human trafficking. But then you come back to, how am I actually going to make this happen? And that's when you have to really be so honest with yourself and your calendar and say, where do I have margin? Where do I have the free time that right now I can see it's free time? And you just start there, because let's say that you continue this idea and you're like, gosh, I really loved that and I want to continue doing it. Then you're going to look deeper at your calendar and say, okay, what's one more thing that I can actually say no to so that I have more time to do this? But, don't feel like initially you have to like start at the finish line. You're going to start at the start,
Yeah. So on that same note, now do you have a few kids? You have 3 kids, is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah, we have 3 kids.
And what are their ages again?
So our daughter Bella is 12 and she's in 6th grade. And then Maddie is 10 and she's in 5th grade. And Parker is 8 and he is in 3rd grade.
Okay, so I have 2 boys that are 12 and almost 10.
Yeah, so they're the same.
Yeah. So, but I speak to maybe like as far as like talking about clearing the calendar, and I know this looks different for everyone, but I was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years before I pursued my career, my dreams, and my purpose.
Yeah.
So I know that I personally we went through a major shift in our family and our household. Mm-hmm. What did that look like for you?
Well, goodness, I feel like it's continual and it changes every season because family life changes and kids' schedules change and all of that. I feel pretty blessed because right now I am still able to do the mom thing and work, and I just work from home. And then my husband has a fairly flexible schedule. He's a worship pastor at our church. And so we can kind of work our schedules together to make sure that everybody can get to where they need to be. But one of the things for us, for our family that we chose was that it was really important for us to not have our schedule run our life, but that we get to actually run our life. And so we are very careful about how much we say yes to. And, you know, there's 3 kids and they all have things they're interested in, but we aren't a sports family. So we're not running around to different sports things, which I feel like does give us a lot more time. But our kids are involved in like the theater, and one of our daughters is in the orchestra. You know, they've got practices and stuff like that. And so I'm like, gosh, everybody's life is so different, and it should be, because you're going to choose the things that are really important to you. But I think my biggest encouragement in this area is that especially if you are a family unit, you know, it's different if you're single or you don't have kids yet. But even before you have kids, even when you're single, like, it's so important that you are choosing to do the things that are actually important to you. You're not choosing to do them because somebody told you should, or they invited you to, or it's what everybody else is doing. You know, I have had to like personally struggle quite a bit with the fact that, like, oh my goodness, our kids aren't in sports. Are we completely depriving them? And then I stand back and I ask all the questions that I tell other people to ask. Do you actually want them to do that? Or do they actually want to do that? Nope. Nobody in this, none of our kids are actually interested in sports. So I'm not depriving them because they don't even want to do it. And then I ask myself, well, why do you feel like you should be doing it, or they should be doing it? And it comes down to, well, it's just what everybody else is doing. And so it seems like that's what should be done. And so we are pretty, we are very focused in what we say yes to. And I actually just took time last week to map out the year. And it's something that I really like to do because it helps us see, you know, what times of the year are busier. And I map out all the events that we're going to do for the business and make sure that they will work for our family calendar. And we map out when we're going to go on family vacations and what we're doing over the summer, and like put it all down on paper on the calendar. It's amazing when you can do that, because it helps you see the things that you're like, you know what, that's probably not as important and it's not going to happen this year. And keeps you a little bit more focused on staying true to what you want your life to be, not what you think other people think it should be.
Absolutely. I think it's so important. And I think it's okay to say no.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. You have to. If you don't say no, you're never going to get to say yes to the things that are on your heart.
Right. And so another, like on that exact same note, do you bring, because I firmly believe this is one of the most important parts to succeeding, whether it's in a career pursuit or building a nonprofit or fulfilling your purpose. But do you think that I always say casting the vision with your family and making it a family ordeal is so important, and making sure everyone understands the end goal. Mm-hmm. So do you include your kids in the freedom dinners and bring them into that? Is it a family affair?
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. They are all involved in different ways depending on what they're interested in. But we talk about like, okay, we're doing a dinner, and like, we'll talk about why we're doing it and who we get to help with it. Our middle daughter absolutely loves cooking, and she is like the party planner extraordinaire. And so she will help prep the food. She sets the table. She is like part of the whole thing, start to finish. But our other kids aren't as interested, but they come and they will come out to the dinner and like talk to people and hang out. Like, this is our home. So like, they are at home here. But the biggest thing that I think that it has done and it's really why I encourage other women, especially when you have young kids, to spend time doing the things that you love with your kids, because it tells them more and teaches them more than any amount of words you could ever say to them. And it shows them how important it is for them to go after the things that they love, and that you're going to support them whatever it is. Like one of our kids, she wanted to raise funds, and it was when we had first started doing the dinners, and she was like, well, I want to raise some money to help the kids in Africa have water. And she's like, maybe I should do a dinner. And I said, well, you could, but you don't have to. There's like a million different ways that you can raise money and like gather people together. And so we sat there talking about what she liked and what she enjoyed doing. And it came down to, she liked watching movies and she wanted to eat popcorn. And so we borrowed some gear from a friend who had like an outdoor movie projector with the big screen. And she invited her friends over. We made a bunch of popcorn and we sat out in the yard, watched I don't even remember what movie we watched, but watched a movie. And we just told everybody, hey, instead of going to the movie theater, come here, donate what you can. Let's just have a fun evening together. And so it was so cool for her. I mean, it was cool for all of us to be able to see, here's this little kid. I think she was only like 8 at the time. And she was just doing the thing that she wanted to do, loved to do. And she was able to donate, I think, $300 from that movie night to an organization that we support here locally that is working in Africa. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is that it's never been like a requirement that our kids do the dinners. I know it is like the thing that's deepest, like in my own heart. But the thing that has been so powerful is that it started so many conversations, and, they're required to help to a certain extent. But really what it has done is allowed us to encourage them to find those things in their own life, and to figure out what it is. Like, it's okay to experiment and be like, I think I like this, and let's see what it's like, and let's do something with it.
Absolutely. I think you're doing it right. I think you're casting the vision. You're teaching them to use their own strengths, their own talents, and that they're never too young or too small to give back and do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And do you, with your kids, like human trafficking is a heavy subject.
Yeah.
And I know that I struggled in the beginning with, how do I like share with my kids why I'm not going to be home making dinner for them tonight? Like who I'm helping.
Yeah.
And so how did you bring that to your kids, or how do you word that with them?
Yeah. So the organization that we support, Rescue Freedom International, they are very specific. They are fighting to end sex slavery. That is a conversation and topic that I just don't feel like my kids need to carry, because that is like so far beyond like the weight of what their brains need to hold on to. Right. And so we have kept it at human trafficking, and what they understand of it is that, the people, they don't get a choice about what they do each day. They are slaves. And we have talked a lot about what it means to be a slave, and that, they're not slaves to people with nice masters. They're slaves to people that are awful and mean to them and don't feed them and hurt them. And so they know it to that extent. Obviously, as our one daughter who's in 6th grade, she gets more details than our 3rd grade third grader.
Right.
And so, I've kept it just more at that level. They knew that we were helping people that didn't have a choice. They didn't have the freedom to choose what they were going to do with their life. And a lot of those people that we're helping are their age. And so that's big for them, being able to connect it to somebody that's their own age that is being forced to do stuff that they don't like. And I just have used stuff that they can actually relate to, like, what if somebody made you scrub the toilet all day long and they were awful and mean to you and, beat you up? They're like, oh, that'd be awful. And I'm like, okay, now they might have a different scenario in their life, but that's the exact same thing that's happening to these kids. And like, let's use all of this abundance that we have and let's leverage it for good. I think that has been the big thing, is trying to help them see and understand that, not everybody in the world gets to live like us. And I'm not just talking about people that are, in a third world country. I'm talking about people here in the US as well. Like, we are fortunate. We have food on our table and a warm house to live in, and like helping them realize that not everybody has that same place to be and have a safe home, and that we can help provide that by being generous with our time and our home.
I think that's perfect. That's honestly, like, that's exactly how I put it to my kids in the beginning, that mom's helping slaves, and exactly in the same type of scenarios that you explained. And like you said, as my oldest son has gotten older and, learned about things at school, it's opened up conversations for us to have where he knows more. Mm-hmm. He knows a lot more. But that's the one thing I want people to know. Like, if you are involved with something like this, you can still bring your kids into the vision, and you can still teach your kids about, taking our abundance and sharing it. You don't have to give them all of the horrible, scary details that are going to keep them up at night.
Totally. Well, it's just like anything in life. When you talk to your kids about, like, well, dad needs to go to work, or I need to go to work so we can pay our bills, you don't like put the weight of the mortgage on them, They just need to know just the surface of it. And, I think that God instilled in each of our hearts a desire to help people that are hurting. Like, if you saw somebody fall down and scrape their knee, like, there's that natural desire to be like, oh my goodness, how can I help you? And helping them connect that to a way that they can help. I think if we can do that for them when they're kids, it sets them up that they're always going to be looking for those opportunities as they get older.
That's so beautiful. I couldn't agree more. And I could sit here and talk with you all day long. We'll have to have you back on the show again. But in the meantime, what do you have going on? Where can people find you on social media? Just whatever you want to plug. Tell us where we can go find it.
Oh, yeah. Well, come find me on Instagram, Kelly Welk. There's all sorts of links on my Instagram page to get you to our fair trade shop, which is Cider Press Lane Shop. I'd love to have you come join me in the Dream Catcher community online. I have a separate website for that because it's kind of this brand new thing that's starting in January. So, you are listening to this right when we're starting. It's like there is no better time to dive in than at the new year, because it's like your heart and your mind are already so ready to just start fresh. And so come start fresh with me. I invite you to come be at my virtual table. And I want to leave you with this one story, because it has so impacted me that, sometimes we are really scared to step out and be brave with the ideas and thoughts that we have. But it's almost like a selfish thing to be scared, because you just have no idea the impact that you will be able to have on the people around you when you are brave to go after those one small, crazy ideas. So after we had been hosting the dinners for, I think it was in the first year, the youth group that's connected to the church that we go to, the youth pastor had this idea, hey, Kelly, like, you've been using what you love to fight what you hate. And he's like, we're going to take February and we're going to call it Freedom February. And they challenged the youth group, which, it's a pretty good sized youth group. There's several hundred kids in it, but they challenged them. They said, okay, this is Freedom February. We want you to take what you love to fight what you hate. And they gave them, ideas like maybe you like playing basketball or you like playing video games. Use that and come up with a way to raise funds to fight human trafficking. And the first year that the youth did that, in 1 month, they raised $20,000. And
oh my gosh.
I stood there on the stage when they were like giving the check to Rescue Freedom, because I thought, I just was like almost speechless, because I'm like, here is me, little old me, who wanted to overlook the fact that I liked cooking dinners and the impact that cooking those dinners has had, not just on me and the people at our table, but on the youth. And this last year, when they did Freedom February at our church, they have since that first year, which was like 3 years ago, I think, now our entire church does Freedom February, and they encourage everybody, use what you love to fight what you hate. And I think last year the church in that 1 month raised like $140,000. And so I just it's crazy. And I will say that since we started hosting the dinners in our backyard, I think I figured it out last month that we have been able to welcome a little bit over 500 people at our table in our orchard. And, we donate a portion of the proceeds from our business as well. But our little table here at our house has been able to raise over $30,000 to fight human trafficking. And so
That's
I just
awesome.
this month, as we get to have this like awareness of the fact that the freedom we have is it can be a burden at times, because you have all of this opportunity and really that question of what are you going to do with it. And so I just want to challenge everyone who's listening to this to think of one small thing that you can do and use that this month. Do that thing that you love to do and leverage it to fight the thing that we hate, which is, this month we're going to say it is human trafficking. We are fighting that. And so I can't wait to hear what all of your listeners do this month, because it's going to be powerful.
Yes, I love this. And they're going to tell you all about it, because they're all going to join the Dreamcatcher community.
Good. Come be with me.
Yes. And we're going to share all of our one small things that we're doing to fight what we hate. So it's been an absolute delight. Thank you so much for your time today. And I can't wait to host my own freedom dinner. And for all you listeners, I'll be posting some information about that very soon.
Good. Yay. I can't wait to hear about it.
All right. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
You guys, how great is she? That's my favorite thing about this podcast. I love getting to meet new people and share their stories. And I don't know about you, but I can't wait to host my own freedom dinner. If you're interested in hosting your own freedom dinner, go to Kelly's website. She has a how-to guide that will walk you through the step-by-step process of hosting your very own freedom dinner. And I don't know about you, but I am super excited about that. It can support any cause that you are passionate about. As always, if you like what you heard today, do us a favor. Go write a review, subscribe, get crazy, share it on all forms of social media. Hey guys, it's a new year, and I promise you there's someone out there that could use some inspiration and empowerment. As always, I can't wait to talk with you next week.